Welcome to Pastoring on Purpose, a podcast of the Center for Ministerial Care. This is Dr. Tim Maness. I am with, as usual, my co-host to my left, Raymond Culpepper II. Hello, Raymond. Say hello to everybody listening today.
Hello to everybody listening today.
He is a man of few words, and so it's good to have Raymond to my left. And to my right is the esteemed, wonderful Dr. Jeff Sargent from Lee University.
Hi, it's good to be back with you, and looking forward to today's guest.
Well, we have a really special guest for our listeners today. Today we have Brother Victor Pagan with us. I'm looking at his resume right here, his bio, whatever you want to call it, and it's lengthy. And I can't help but look at this and think to myself, man, I have really underachieved. It is really exhaustive. You have, Brother Pagan, you have really served the church in so many different capacities in so many different ways. And we were even talking before we started recording a little bit how you were a national youth director at the age of 19, which is absolutely amazing to me. And so we're going to get into that interview. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to be talking about the Vita Foundation. We're going to be talking about mental health as usual. We're going to be talking about leadership. Brother Pagan, thank you for being with us today. It's an honor to have you.
It is my honor. I am delighted to be here with you guys.
Well, just share with us a little bit about what we had really talked about before, about who you are. Give us a little bit about your story for those listening. I know many that's going to be listening today are going to know the name Victor Pagan. You've served the church in so many different ways and capacities, and a very well-respected name, I'll say that. But just jump in there and give our listeners a taste of who you are.
Well, let me begin by saying that when you pronounce my name, please do it in Spanish. Pagan, because if you say it in English, it will be pagan. And that doesn't sound good although throughout the years, my friends in the church, they tease me with my name. What are you doing here? You are a pagan. And I've come up with, my response to those who call me a pagan. I say, well, but remember, I am an ordained pagan. I am not your regular kind of pagan. Or if I am still a pagan, blame it on you, because I've been around for quite some time. So anyway, I was born in Puerto Rico by the grace of God, and I grew up there and went to Bible school in Puerto Rico and did ministry in Puerto Rico until the Lord and the executive committee decided that I should come to the States to work with the Hispanics here and eventually to work missions. And it's been a wonderful ride. I have enjoyed every minute of it. And I am grateful to God and to the church that has given me the opportunity to practice ministry in the Church of God. I am honored.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. And 2012, I believe, looking at your bio, but in 2012 you entered into a new phase of your life, retirement, right? How has that step been for you in your life?
Well, I didn't know what to expect. Uh-huh. I had been praying about it and planning for it, because I think that is very important. If you know you will someday retire, or even if you don't know that you will retire, you need to plan for that. And I was still, active in some ways, preaching here and there. And then a couple of friends of mine said, Victor, we need to formalize in some way your ministry. And that's when we came up with the idea of establishing this Vita Foundation. And pastoral care had been a burden of mine for years. So we decided that if we were going to establish a foundation, let's focus on care, pastoral care, and support for pastors and leaders. And that's what we've been doing. and I have enjoyed every day of my 10 years retirement now. I don't regret it. No complaints, no regrets.
Good.
I love it.
So for your retirement, you started a new ministry.
Right. it was a change of venue.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yes. Well, that's interesting because, when I think of retirement, that's just a word we oftentimes a lot of ministers try to stay away from. It's a scary time. They struggle sometimes with that trend. It's a very difficult time. It just really is. And so did you find that to be difficult whenever you went through that process?
I have changed for my own benefit.
Yeah.
I don't call it retirement. I call it recharge.
Recharge. I like it.
So
I like it.
I continue to preach and receive invitations, and my friends honor me with, inviting me to conventions and local churches, and I'm staying busy.
Yeah, I bet. And you have grandkids too, right?
I do, and I enjoy each one of them. We have 8.
Wow.
And one great grand already.
Wow. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, let's get into the next portion of our interview here, because you mentioned the Vida Foundation. And I think it's important to talk about this because this ministry has helped so many ministers. And so for our listeners out there that don't know what this ministry is, or maybe they're not aware of it, maybe they don't know what Vida stands for, can you just give them an idea of what this is and give us an overview of what is the Vida Foundation?
Vida, Vida is the word in Spanish for life. And it came out of a suggestion by a friend. Vida is also a combination of my name and my wife's name. My name is Victor. My wife's name is Ada. So we took V from Victor and Da from Ada, and that's where Vida came from. And basically, Brother Tim, it is a ministry of care. We raise funds with a project number with World Missions, and the money that we raise is completely spent, all of it, every penny. No one receives any compensation. Every penny is spent, and this is what we do. 2 main things. We sponsor retreats on pastoral care. What we do, we bring in pastors to a location, usually a hotel. For a whole week, we sponsor this retreat where pastors are refreshed. We invite a medical doctor, a clinical psychologist, and a family counselor.
Wow.
And these are the resources. They talk to the pastors about how they can take care of themselves in each one of these areas. It is not a conference on church growth or church administration. It is focused on the person of the minister, particularly the pastor. And we also provide scholarships for needy ministerial students around the world. So we try to support, to care, because I have come up with this phrase: the ministry of care is uncared for.
Wow.
So we need to take care of our pastors.
Amen. That's phenomenal. And what are some of the testimonies that has come out of this ministry? Because I'm thinking there's so many tired, weary ministers, and you're not bringing them in to do a church growth conference. This is not something to where we're going to throw a bunch of books at you and let's get to work. And this is really a time for kind of to focus on you, right? Something that many of our ministers spend their whole life focusing on others and how to help others. This is a moment where we can just kind of stop, slow down a little bit,
Right.
and focus on us. What does that look like? And what are some of the testimonies you've heard from this?
I can share with you a couple of them, like a pastor from Guatemala. He and his wife, they came to the retreat in Nicaragua, and 2 months prior to the retreat, they had lost a son, 28 years old son, who was in charge of the worship at the local church, and he died. He got sick and died, and this couple, they were devastated.
Yeah.
I mean, losing a son, active in ministry, and they were about to quit. They came really, they were about to fall into depression. But at the end of the week, when we give them an opportunity to share, they came up and they said, I am going back to be involved in ministry for the rest of my life. I'm going back to my pulpit. And they were crying and praising God and how that week had blessed them. And we also had a lady here in Cleveland when we had a retreat here in Cleveland, and we had couples coming from the Hispanic churches all throughout the States. And a lady pastor after the week came to me and she said, this week changed my life.
Wow.
And again, the program is quite light. We teach them on these areas, but we also go out and do some sightseeing. In fact, here in Cleveland, we invited them to Barney Creek.
Oh, yeah. Barney
and
Creek, yeah.
to Field of the Woods, and they enjoyed every minute of it.
Wow.
So it was terrific. It has become a source of refreshment and encouragement and support and care for these people.
Wow, that's absolutely phenomenal. And Barney Creek, just a little bit of history there, right?
Right.
Just a little bit. If you're not Church of God if you don't know a little bit about Barney Creek. And I want my colleagues here to kind of chime in on this ministry, because you just mentioned two testimonies where devastation, hurt, pain, was able to use this ministry. God was able to use this ministry to, like you said, recharge them, to help them. And Jeff, any comments or anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Victor. I'm really impressed with this. This is in the fact that you had the foresight, or I guess we should say more accurately, you received a calling for this ministry a decade ago, when what we've seen over the past decade, a rise in mental health problems for people around the world, and specifically for ministers. With that in mind, have you seen that change? Have you seen any change in the needs of pastors, or has there been more stress that's being reported, more mental health issues? Or would you say, no, it's like the rest of the world is catching on after a decade, after you and the others have saw this need a decade ago?
Well, particularly the last couple of years with this pandemic, it has become more stressful for the pastors to do the work of ministry. The challenges, to be honest with you, Jeff, talking to pastors these past 2-3 years, my friends, they have gone through a very difficult time. Mm. And I came to a point listening to them when I said, Lord, thank you that I am not a pastor now.
Yeah.
Yes. My days as a pastor are behind me, although I feel that my heart is that of a pastor. But it is becoming more stressful. The challenges of a pastor, the family issues, the political issues, all of that, it all comes upon the shoulders of a pastor. And each day, the families of a local church, they depend so much of the pastor. And the pastor goes to his bed with all those burdens. And this is what I have discovered the last 10 years, that pastors come to me with the testimony. I was not able to sleep last night. Mm-hmm. And they keep looking up to the roof and it is 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they don't sleep, and they don't even know that they are going through a hard time emotionally and at the border of depression. So during the retreats, we try to make them aware of the signs that they should be paying attention. Times when you can't sleep, you don't eat well, you don't exercise, you don't take care of yourself. And it destroys you, your family, and your church eventually. Yes, it is more difficult. It is not becoming easier to be a pastor.
Wow. And like you said, Brother Pagan, it's all encompassing. Raymond, I want you to kind of chime in here because I know we see it quite often. I'm really glad we've talked about it actually of using resources to help us at Ministerial Care. There's so much need out there that it's important for us to be able to network with others and to be able to use their expertise to be able to provide the care to our ministers and having Brother Pagan in here is a step in that right direction. But I want you to kind of just chime in and just really piggyback a little bit on what Brother Pagan was saying and what are your thoughts as far as the world we live in today has changed for ministry? And I'm not sure if it's ever going to go back to pre-pandemic days. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But what have you seen, and what are some of your thoughts on this subject?
I think that the pandemic it's just irreversible change has been brought about, and it's going to be more difficult now. People are a little bit more divided. This has been an issue that has not just affected us and affected our health, it's affected our culture. And so the culture that people are trying to do ministry in is a lot more toxic for it, especially in certain quarters. But one thing that you have touched on that I would like to hear a little bit more about, and I'm sure that ministers would benefit from, are what types of things do you work with ministers on for self-care? Taking care of yourself can mean a million things. Is it 18 holes of golf, or what kinds of things specifically do you think helps ministers kind of recharge and refresh in this environment?
Raymond, I believe that the hardest thing for any person is to unlearn what they have been taught. And I grew up as a young minister where you could not go to a ballpark to see a ball game. You could not take vacations because that was, I remember this phrase, the devil doesn't take vacations. He doesn't rest.
Yeah.
Yes.
You, pastor, what are you talking about leaving the church for 2 weeks? You can't do that. And, we have to look for it's a new paradigm where the pastor is a person. He's a human being. He gets tired. He needs to rest. He needs to pay attention to his family. He needs to relax and practice some sort of, relaxation, exercise, practice sport if he's able to play ball, go play ball. So it is a matter of leading the pastor and even the congregation. Maybe we need to go through a process of teaching the members how they can take care of the pastor and teach the pastors that they need to take care of themselves and, plan for your vacation, for your time of retirement, and for that kind of thing. It is, in a way, let me put it this way, some of the pastors need to become a little bit more selfish.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Think about them, the wife, the kids. And, some of us, we've learned through the process. They don't teach these things at PTS. Right. They should.
Absolutely. And you mentioned being tired, worn out. That doesn't do us any good. That doesn't do the church any good. That doesn't do our families any good. If anything, that's really setting us up for failure, isn't it?
Right, right. I mean, if you're tired, if you are in pain, if you're hurting, how can you help people who are in need,
Yep.
waiting for you to help them?
The one thing you said that I've written it down here because it really captures what you're sharing is the pastor as a person. You could build a whole program just on that, teaching both the congregation and, more importantly, the pastor himself or herself that you are a person first. I think we forget about that. We focus so much on the call, on the vocation, and forget, but you're still human and you still have needs and you need to take care of yourself. And I don't know if selfish, sometimes people will reject that idea, but self-care involves thinking about yourself as a human and admitting that you're a human first and that you have needs as well. I really like that phrase, the pastor is a person. Sounds like a bumper sticker or a hashtag or something, but no, really, it has a lot of meaning and power behind it,
Right.
that you are a person. All right, a person of God, a person of faith, that you are a human being, and human beings have needs.
When you become a minister, a pastor, you don't stop being human.
No.
You get tired, you get hungry, you need to sleep, you need to rest. All those human needs are also the needs of a pastor.
Yes.
Wow. And that's amazing. And you being human does not disqualify you from ministry.
Well, being human is what God did.
Yes.
He became human.
Yep. Yep.
Devil's not human.
No, he's not. And he doesn't care.
This is so good. This is so good and rich, because we try so hard in ministry to put on kind of an appearance that we've got everything figured out. We spend so much energy in trying to, get others to believe that we're great at whatever and we don't experience pain or hurt. And I'll never forget when I was pastoring, I got a phone call at 3:00 in the morning. And I sat up in my bed and I said, hello. My wife looked at me like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't want them to think that I'm, half asleep. Yeah. It's 3 a.m. It's okay to sleep. And so, Pastor, were you sleeping? And I was just, I was just thinking about you. Of course, I saw
Bible study time.
Yeah, this is time for prayer. I don't sleep. I'm a pastor.
Holy Communion right now.
A friend of mine, this is what actually he told a member who called him at 3 a.m. And the member said, Pastor, were you sleeping? What? And the pastor said, no, I was here waiting for your call.
Why would I sleep, right? I mean, we don't need that. But it's so good because we're trying to go at a pace that God did not create our bodies to go. And I love the fact with the Vita Foundation, you bring in a medical doctor.
Oh, yes.
Because our ministers are not particularly healthy.
I'd like to ask right there, okay, just briefly, would you tell us, all right, so you have a physician, you have a clinical psychologist, you have a family counselor. Would you just tell us briefly, all right, if we were attending this week, all right, what were some of the activities or programming that would take place?
Well, the doctor will teach every day on how to take care of your health. He talks about, diet. He talks about resting. He talks about exercising, as a medical doctor. And so far, we've been able to bring in doctors who are also pastors. So they know it very well, And the clinical psychologists will teach them how to take care of their mental health.
Right.
Be aware if these things are happening to you. Be aware. Go to a professional. Don't be afraid to check with a counselor and share with him what you're going through. And of course, the family counselor will talk to them about how to take care of the family. And we pastors, we fail in that regard. Yes. Our church becomes everything to us, and we leave behind our family, and the results are not good when we do that. So, and then we also take them around, as I said, sightseeing, and we go to any particular attractive place in town. We play games. It's a week of care for the pastors.
It's really a holistic approach. I'm really impressed. I really am, because there is a tendency, okay, we're going to step away and we're not going to do work, but you end up doing work, right? So let's all work for 8 hours on our mental and physical health. Well, no, you need time just to go and see the beauty of the earth. You need to go and step away from an office or a enclosed space. And I think that's wonderful that you've built in time to actually relax.
I remember when we went to the first one, we did it in Argentina, in South America. And when I printed the program, after lunch, I actually wrote from 1 to 5 the word nothing. Nada.
That's beautiful.
From 1 to 5, nada. And the first day, people would come to me saying, Victor, but from 1 to 5, what are we going to do?
understand.
And I will point.
understand, yes.
I will
Yeah.
point to them. What does the
Right.
program say? Well, it says nada.
Yes.
Nada
Yes.
means you do whatever. Go to sleep, take a siesta, take a walk, watch TV. Do nada.
Yes.
Relax, brother.
That is beautiful. That is, but it also highlights how difficult, how we have to retrain or rethink our daily lives in these contexts, because we're so conditioned to, oh well, there's got to be a program, and if there's not a program, then I'm wasting time. That's
Right.
part of it too. That's part of that.
It is built into the program
Yes.
to have spare time, to relax, to meditate. We always bring them a book. We give them a book that they can read during the week. If they choose to do that, they could throw it away or take it home or whatever. But that time in the afternoon is completely their own time.
Wow. And I'm thinking of the verse and paraphrasing here, but whatever is good, holy, right, think on these things.
Yes.
And I love that, that you have nothing there, because I think sometimes in ministry we're just so busy, especially with the pandemic and everything else that's going on, that we don't even have time to think, it seems, or even process what we've been through or what we're going through. And to be able to just block that noise out and just be still.
Yeah, we need to learn that busyness does not equal to effective ministry.
Wow.
There we go.
That's true.
That's another
That's so
episode right there. No, I really think of it, because you're right. We often somehow our own theology, all right, and part of our culture as well, get us to believe this myth that if I'm busy, I'm actually being productive, and it doesn't always equate to that. In fact, often it doesn't. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we could stay on that for a while. And, Brother Bagan, let me just ask you this. If for our listeners out there, you have served the church in so many different capacities. How long have you been in ministry now?
Well, I began my ministry in 1965 at the age of 19.
Wow.
When I was appointed National Youth Director in Puerto Rico. And I have, although I am retired, quote unquote, so I've been in ministry for 58 years now.
That's amazing. At 19, I was trying to, my biggest decision was probably what kind of brand of cereal do I want to eat in the morning, That's absolutely amazing. And you've served as administrative bishop, executive level. As you reflected on your ministry, for those listening, our pastors out there, leadership that's out there, even our lay members out there, what nugget, what suggestion would you want to leave them with today as they're listening to this? Maybe they're struggling, maybe they're having a hard time coping, adapting, challenging their own, calling that God has given to them, and really just about to just give up and give in kind of thing. And what would you want to say to those people listening today?
You said a word that in my own theology, pastoral theology, is important. Make sure that you've been called to be a minister. As I go through Scripture, I see that God reserved to himself the right to choose the bishops, priests in the Old Testament, the apostles, and Paul, he underscores, I was called of God to be an apostle. And when you're going through hard times, that assurance that you have been called, sometimes that's all you have to hang on until better days come.
Wow.
That you have been called.
Wow. So trust your calling,
Ah,
right? Trust your
makes
calling.
a difference.
It does. This is that time of the show where we go into our action steps. I'm going to rename that to Raymond's Rewind. And it has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? But Raymond, just from this episode, what we've learned from Victor Pagan today being with us, give our listeners some action steps, a rewind, if you will, of some things that we can really take away from this episode.
I think some of the things that Jeff was talking about as well is vital. And whenever I'm trying to get people to come here for an intensive, I always point out, look, we're going to do some counseling, we're going to do intensive counseling work, but the majority of the time here is going to be y'all's. We want to get you away from this area where you are. There are triggers. In counseling, you call that a safe place where you can kind of get away from the anxiety, get away from those stressors. And then the things that you're working on, in your case with medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, those things can really kind of take hold and be applied. They can think about it. They can process that together without the negative sentiment that might exist in their native environment. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I think one of the biggest things we can do is look for ways to change that momentum that you would have where you are and kind of get away from things like that. It's okay not to be working or doing counseling. It's okay to be doing those things if you're doing something that you feel like is kind of changing the momentum in your life and it's helping you to cope and it's getting you in a more positive place. Because like you said, you're not going to be able to help people effectively if you just limp around. You got to be straight. You got to have your head in the game, and you have to be rested. You have to have all your faculties at top shape to be able to deal with some of the stressors that are presenting themselves nowadays.
Excellent. You know, it reminds me, have you ever worked on a paper at like midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Never.
You never do that?
Never worked on a paper. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I am not.
I tell people that when they call me at 3 o'clock.
Yeah. I wasn't sleeping. Who needs sleep,
Yeah.
right?
I'm working.
I'm
man.
working. But when you're working at, you're trying to kind of burn that midnight oil, if you will, you're working at, and you're falling asleep, you're tired, you're exhausted. And I've always learned if I take a nap, well, at that point, I'm going to sleep, right? But if I need to take a nap, if I need to go to sleep the first thing in the morning, I feel refreshed, I'm more effective. I can actually, what I'm typing actually makes sense. It's not incoherent. It does make a difference whenever we can get rest.
Certainly. And let me just say also, when we're talking about that, I don't believe that that's important just for the pastor. I think that is important. It's vital for the pastor's family.
Absolutely.
To get away and do that corporately and incorporate those kinds of things into the ministry he's doing.
Yes.
Some of the best things we did when I was a kid growing up pastoring were Friday night family nights. And people would come together and they would play volleyball and eat. Mm-hmm. You know there wasn't a foot washing or anything like that, and people got so much out of that. They connected. They had positive sentiment that built up, and that can carry you a long ways, and it's medicinal.
Well, we call ourselves the people of the book. And when you open the book, one of the first lessons in the book is that God created the Sabbath
Yeah.
for the sake of man.
Yeah.
He created a human being who he knew, God knew, that needed to rest. So he added a day to the week. He had completed creation and added one more day. Said, oh, this man will need to rest. Let me add to the week one more day just for rest.
Wow.
So keep the Sabbath.
Wow. And giving some of our listeners some, especially pastors out there, some sermon material as well. So that's really good stuff and very rich. And leads us into our last section today is our mailbag section. And one of the questions that we got coming in from our listeners is, how does ministerial care minister to the family, the ministerial family? And Raymond, I'm gonna ask you to kind of jump in there and tackle that question, and then I'll piggyback off of what you're saying and kind of finish that up. But what are some things that ministerial care does to minister to the families of our ministers?
Well, I mean, the way we do things here at Ministerial Care is kind of split. I work more with restoration work here. So if a minister and his family have had a crisis mode and they're working through a process of restoration, what I try to do is incorporate something that kind of correlates with the minutes of the church that is required in that situation, as well as something that can be useful as a means of applying care that's going to be effective. And I usually just kind of have a care team. There'll be a mentoring pastor involved in that. If possible, there will be a local therapist that gets involved with that, and I have contact with a number of them, where that's possible. And then we will be involved in that from Ministerial Care, providing care, and the state overseer will also have an inroad into that so that he can work with that unit. And the focus of that whole thing is the well-being of that family. And I think that is the most important thing that we do in restoration, is try to make sure that the focus of the work that we're putting into those cases goes to the well-being of that minister and his family.
Absolutely. And you may be listening today, and you may not even be Church of God. You may be another pastor from a different organization or independent or even laity. And here in the Church of God and really in Ministerial Care, we believe in restoration. We believe that God restores, God mends, God brings back together. So for our ministers that are struggling, going through a difficult time, we that may have fallen away or experienced some type of hurt or pain, there's a way for them to have that mending. We have something there for our ministers and our families, not just for the pastor itself, but for the ministerial family as well, to receive healing. And God is not done with you. That's the key thing. We have seen so many success stories come through that work. Also, like I said, as far as the family goes, we provide counseling at no cost to our licensed ministers. Whether you're a pastor, youth pastor, maybe you're in between appointments, I don't know. You're in leadership, I don't know. But if you're a licensed minister in the Church of God, you can receive counseling at no cost. You can come in. We have a sabbatical house that we often use. We also do online counseling as well, which has been extremely phenomenal, by the way, and has kept me very busy. But I enjoy that interaction. So if you are a spouse of a minister, you have counseling available to you at no cost. If you are a PK, a pastor's kid of a minister, you have a counseling available to you at no cost. And as you know, counseling itself is very expensive. Mm-hmm. We do pastoral counseling here, confidential. And a lot of times in counseling, we do refer. We make sure sometimes you need to go to a medical doctor. Sometimes you need to go to a counselor locally. We want to do what's in the best interest of our ministers.
And let me just also say, what we do here ultimately is ministry.
Yes.
It isn't just psychiatry or psychobabble stuff. It's ministry.
Yep.
What we're trying to do is help ministers pursue the calling that they've been given, because there's a purpose to what they're doing, and there's a need for what they're doing. And the more people that they go out and help, the more we're helping.
Yes.
And so it's a ministry is the way I see it.
Absolutely. And I say this often is one of our goals is to help keep you in the game longer so that God can continue to finish the calling that God has for you in your life.
And more effective.
And absolutely more effective. And so we're also doing conferences now. We're starting to do that. So we're really excited about that. So we can spend a lot of time with all the things we're doing, this podcast, those kind of things. So let me just say this to our guest, and who is also now, the way I consider it, you're part of the team. You're part of the ministerial care team, Brother Victor, because you do so much, and we're so thankful. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It has been my pleasure and honor to share some of my ideas and programs and ministry with you guys. I commend what you do. We need to help our people that are still in the trenches. Amen. And that's what we want to do. I was talking the other day here to Brother Tim, and I said, I have found a corner in the vineyard of the Lord that I felt needed attention, and I'm staying there.
Wow.
So thank you.
Thank you. And for those listening today, where can they get some more information about the Vida Foundation, and where they may be able to get some information or maybe even be able to help?
Amen. Anyone who may be interested in supporting financially Vida Foundation, you can send your donations through World Missions. Make sure you indicate that your donation is for Project 1029291, and you'll receive credit if you're a Church of God as a missions offering, and Vida Foundation will be able to bless many, many more ministers, pastors. God bless.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/COGCMC. We are also on Twitter at TwitterCOGCMC. You can go to our website at centerforministerialcare.com and get some more information about us there. Even send us an email if you would like. If you have a question that you would like to send in and us to address on our podcast, please send that to us. You can email it to us at tmanis@churchofgod.org, or you can send it to us through our website as well. Or you can reach me at Praying Manis. That is my Twitter handle, at Praying Manis. So, because I am a praying Manis. So there you go. You like that, don't you? It's good stuff.
Even at 3 a.m.
Even at 3 a.m. That's exactly right. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you so much, Brother Victor. You are such a blessing. And for being with us, I have to say this. You get the customary Center for Ministerial Care mug, and this is a gift to you. We haven't tested it. We haven't tried it out.
I will.
You will. That's right. Whenever you use this, all I ask is that you remember us in your prayers and think of us as we continue to labor together and help our ministers. Absolutely. So thanks for being with us.
I'll be drinking more coffee now.
Thank you for being with us. And for Jeff, Raymond, myself, Victor, we will see you next time on Pastoring on Purpose. God bless.